We don't know yet the cause of the train derailment that currently has 6 dead and over 200 injured. Was it a failed infrastructure, a result of Washington kleptocrats who make themselves rich while the country goes off the rails? Or was it a deliberate act of sabotage? Just as many people will wonder what happened when the U.S. crashes, the aftermath will be just as bad as this train crash, except there won't be any outside help coming. This horrific train crash is a metaphor for the trends that are about to derail and crash our economy and nation. We just saw a train robbery by Drug Enforcement Agency thugs taking $16,000 in cash from a man for no other reason than that they could get away with it. Our legal infrastructure and our economic infrastructure are broken down. Like 2 rails of a train track, these foundations of our country are crumbling. And it's not benign neglect, but the deliberate sabotage of our nation and our economy. This is David Knight reporting for Infowars.com.
Now Monsanto has been derated from a good investment by major investment firms to a risky, bad investment. Their profits are in trouble. McDonald's is in trouble. They're both an allied operation. This is Frankenfood. And they get up there and they lie. And they say, oh, it's just like George Washington Carver crossing 2 tomatoes. No, because those tomatoes are closely enough related that they're able to breed together. But just like if you get a donkey and a horse, very similar, to have sex, they can procreate, but they have a sterile offspring. It's called a mule. I'm not a geneticist, but I know these basic things. It's like a liger, a tiger and a lion. You can breed them. The offspring, a liger, is sterile. What happens when you breed 2 tomatoes together that are further enough apart that they're able to get together and share their different traits, but they don't produce seeds, or the seeds don't produce more fruit? Tomato is a fruit, for those that didn't know. They've gone beyond that and created GMO where you'll have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 traits in it, where it lasts longer, it doesn't die. Bugs can't eat it. If they do eat it, they die, because there's a natural pesticide produced. And they argue, well, it's a natural pesticide, yeah, but you boost it 1,000 times or more. Yeah, the plant produces a pesticide or invites a fungus to grow on it that's poisonous, but it's not at that level. It's not inside the plant. You wash it off. Didn't used to kill the honeybees. And that's all 20, 30-year-old technology that's wreaking havoc right now. But as all this comes out, the system is panicking. At the bottom of the hour, our guest will be with us for the hour. I will do a 5-minute news blitz on incredible economic news, incredible world news, just over-the-top intel. And we've got economists coming out, mainline ones, with headlines like this. Millions upon millions of people are going to die on a worldwide scale when the debt bubble burst. I mean, video, student confronts Jeb Bush, your brother created ISIS. Iowa man arrested for Facebook post calling for murder of white cops. Roomba maker to develop smart robots to surveil your home. Manslaughter charge against black officer in gray case derails race agenda in Baltimore. Video, Marines practice of doing citizens inside internment camps. That's linked on drudgereport.com. It's on Infowars.com. Rand Paul visits secret room to read Obama trade, the SPP, or the TPP, calls for public release of deal. Yeah, it's thousands of pages long. There's a photo in the article. It's a locked door. They search you. You can't have anything on you. And then you go in, and that's since lawmakers demanded to see it a few months ago. For the last 2 years, while they've been writing this, the corporate lawyers globally, for this Asia partnership, Congress can't see it. I mean, just think about that. And it's the same thing. Who sits on these boards? Monsanto. Who sits on the IMF advisory boards? Who sits on the World Trade Organization board? You guessed it, Monsanto representatives. Who sits over the FDA and EPA? Monsanto. And back when I would get Jeffery Smith and Percy Smizer and others on, Monsanto was suing people that criticized them then with slap suits. They were, and they still do. But that intimidation didn't work. Folks that brought you Agent Orange, dioxin, dumped in black communities, I mean, the people that brought you aspartame, they bought Searle. They couldn't get it approved in the 70s. They got it approved in 1981. Now admitted to absolutely give you cancer, you name it. Kill monkeys in lab tests. I mean, this isn't a joke. Monsanto is the most devilish company I could think of. I mean, they really are wicked. And now the world is waking up. Every couple days, a new country's banning the importation. Every new studies have come out linking it to cancer in humans. The UN has come out. I mean, humanity is awakening. And by the way, it didn't come from the top. It was the UN scientist. So more and more, just like FDA scientists in 2000 and again a few years ago, almost unanimously, it was like 99% of them sent letters to their bosses saying hydrofluorosilicic acid is causing bone cancer, brain damage, IQ reduction. Here's our studies. Here's our Harvard studies. It needs to be pulled out of the water. It doesn't help the teeth. You need a little bit of calcium fluoride. This is hydrofluorosilicic acid. If you're going to put it in there, you need to put a little bit of calcium fluoride. This is deadly poison. They just reduced it by half in the water and have now banned it in all pesticides. Already banned worldwide. We're having some devastating victories right now. And this is very exciting. And the man spearheading so much of this, and we sell his books and his films, Jeffery Smith is international best-selling author, award-winning filmmaker, executive director of the Institute for Responsible Technology, and a leading spokesman on the health dangers of GMOs, the most recognized consumer advocate promoting healthier, non-GMO choices. And he's the author of the documentary and the book, Genetic Roulette. He's the executive director of the Institute for Responsible Technology, non-GMOshoppingguide.com, responsibletechnology.com, seedsofdeception.com. And find all his books and films at InfoWarsStore.com and support both of our operations. Jeffrey, am I overstating? And it doesn't mean we're overall winning the war. We've been losing it horribly. America's the dumping ground for everything. We know that, the test tube. But if we were behind 50 points in a football game, have we just come back 37 points and we've got a quarter left? And are we just lobbing Hail Marys and catching every one? I mean, it doesn't mean we've won, but are we not racing back to a global awakening? I mean, are we on the cusp of a new renaissance? Because it was dark having you on 14, 15, 16 years ago, having Percy Smyser on 16 years ago when he first launched his operation. Now it seems like, courts are coming out admitting Monsanto planted their stuff on their crops. Monsanto's having things reversed. I want to know about how they're striking back, part 2 of this interview, but am I accurate with you at the center of this, who testifies to, major political bodies worldwide? Where are we right now in the global fight to not have poison food?
Well, we're definitely winning, Alex, and the chief victory is among consumers. As you know, in 1999, consumer concern on GMOs caused a tipping point of consumer rejection. And it was this very specific moment in time when the food companies realized that using GMOs was going to cost them money. And that moment in time was April 27th, when Unilever said no more GMOs in its European brands. The next day, Nestle's said no more GMOs in its European brands. The next week or two, everyone else followed. That tipping point of consumer rejection occurred in the natural products industry in the United States in 2013, when Whole Foods announced that when a product becomes third-party verified as non-GMO, it increases sales by 15 to 30%. Immediately, thousands of products were enrolled in verification. There's over 30,000 non-GMO verified products in the United States that tipped the natural products industry. Now we see products like Cheerios and Grape Nuts and Ben & Jerry's and Target Home Brands and soon Hershey's all declaring non-GMO on their package. As soon as they start increasing in market share in the United States, the rest of the food industry will realize, I can't wait till my chief competitor goes non-GMO before me, or I'll start losing customers. So we're looking for a tipping point of consumer rejection in the United States this year, or at the very latest next year, and we think there'll be a clean out of GMOs and direct ingredients over the next 3 years, and for animal products over the next 5.
And Monsanto is caving in all over the world and pulling its push in Europe for GMOs. I liken this to Hitler's collapse on the Eastern Front, launching a counteroffensive on the Western Front at the Battle of the Bulge. I think that's the point we're at. If we beat them at the Battle of the Bulge in the next couple of years, I believe we're seeing a collapse-level event of these operators.
Not only that, but we just got incredible ammunition from the World Health Organization last month that declared Monsanto's Roundup and its active ingredient glyphosate as a probable carcinogen. Since then, 30,000 Argentine medical doctors have petitioned their government to ban it. The federal prosecutor in Brazil has said that their government should ban it. The president of Colombia said they're no longer going to use it to spray on the cocoa fields to eradicate that trade. It was banned in Richmond in California, and it continues to be the subject. Pardon?
Bermuda just banned it?
Bermuda. So what's happening now is all over the world, they're realizing that Monsanto actually has known about these health dangers for decades. In fact, an EPA document became available showing that there was concerns about cancer back in the late 1980s. Similarly, there was evidence showing birth defects back in the 1980s. They've been covered up by Monsanto and regulators. And it turns out in Argentina, the peasants that are sprayed with this Roundup or glyphosate have much higher levels of birth defects, 400% increase region-wide, 70 times in one hospital, and an increase in cancer of 300% in one area and higher in other regions. We also saw in China, when they started introducing genetically engineered Roundup-ready soybeans for their soybean oil, it was reported that cancer and heart disease and other problems skyrocketed. I was there giving a presentation in Beijing last year. A general who was in the audience had earlier reported that he warned the government and warned the people that this new genetically modified Roundup-ready soybean oil was linked to all of these increased in diseases, and the army of China thereafter refused to serve its own soldiers GMOs, even though the government still allows the rest of the population to eat it.
In fact, that came out in the news that the Chinese elite are obsessed with non-GMO and were found to have secret government-funded gardens.
It turns out that Bush, the past Bush administration, absolutely insisted that their kitchen be organic, and evidently Obama has followed through. So it turns out that those that know the situation don't want to risk themselves. In fact, a former Monsanto scientist told me that 3 of his colleagues were doing the safety studies on
Stay there. This is amazing. I want to hear it when we come back. Now they're coming out and saying, that words are going to be copyright where you supposedly can't use them in language. They're now saying you can't work on your own car. In fact, this morning I was talking to a lady, and she was telling me about her Keurig coffee maker and how her one that she had for 2 years broke, so she bought a new one. And I said, yeah, I have one of those. But I said, mine's old. She said, well, you put the new little canister in there. It's not one of their coffees. It won't work. It's got a RFID chip in it. She was a listener, and she was telling me how she heard about that years ago. And, oh, yeah. And so you have to go in and basically put tape over it or cut the chip off so that her other, in this case, she said organic coffee, we were having an organic discussion at the gym, would go in there. So see, that's the type of monopoly they're trying to create. And I'm kind of diverting off into another subject, but it all connects. We were talking about Volkswagen. You buy a Volkswagen, 2 years later, your battery doesn't work. You go get a third-party battery, same battery, works great. They remotely, from the factory, turn it off. You have to go in and pay a $150 service charge to have them certify it as theirs. Now, that's where all this is going. And with this genetically engineered food, that's where it's going. Now, this is a short segment, Mr. Smith. Long segment coming up. You were going into victories right now. I'm glad to hear from you, the expert, that I'm not overestimating how exciting this is. Let me shift gears, and we'll go back into good news and where the rest of the fight is in the next segment. In this short segment, as we talk to Jeffery Smith, ResponsibleTechnology.com, probably the leading spokesperson fighting this stuff on the GMO. There's Mercola and others, but they cover the whole spectrum. Let me ask you this question. How is the empire going to strike back? What's going to be their battle of the bulge, counteroffensive? What are they doing?
Well, they're spending millions of dollars now promoting the, quote, benefits of GMOs through media, and also trying to discredit those of us like me and Vandana Shiv and others, claiming that we are anti-science and uncredible. So they're actually cornered against the wall, and in discussions with my colleagues around the world, it's clear that they're doing a full court press. I'm here in Ecuador, where the country actually has a constitutional amendment saying that no GMOs are allowed. If you look at WikiLeaks, the United States government had a plan to undermine the Constitution here and get them to overturn it. So they actually paid for bringing reporters